You know,
Jackie, I am kind of slightly obsessive, and I'm trying not to be. So I'm really working hard to try not to do too much detail. I could be here for hours, like putting every little bit in.
Exactly. Just for time purposes, you want to get more subjects in. At some point, you have to stop. But I just interviewed a painter who is coming up at Portland Open Studios, which is a big art show that I help curate every year. And he is like a photorealistic painter in his 40s who has never really launched anywhere. He works at like Adidas as a swimsuit designer, an apparel designer. And he paints photorealistically. And when he was talking, he said, yeah, there is this obsessive, you start as a kid and then you get kind of obsessed with the level of detail, right? So we're always trying to balance that. Like absolutely get as obsessive as you want to. Everybody's going to do it differently.
I love Marie's style so much. I aspire to be as, I don't know, how she puts the marks on the paper and they really somehow represent it, but it just is less detail. It's like,
She's really good. I'm so glad you did that. She's really good. I love her work. And that's why I hired her. Because I was like, I don't even know exactly how she does what she does. Like, I can't, like, I trained her and I don't know exactly how she does what she does. I mean, I know.
I can't believe she's only been doing it for 3 years. And wow. She picked up a pastel class.
And she thinks this when I bring this up, but she cried the first day I put her in front of pastels. She cried. She hated it. So it's funny how sometimes the thing that you hate is the thing that turns out to be the thing that you love. Francesca, we're talking about the Pastel Landscapes teacher on Sundays at this same time, which you should try and catch as well. It's pretty amazing. Okay, so let me see here. I heard that. Okay, so this is Victoria Falls, and I actually think we've done this in pencil about a year ago with the Europe group. So I was going through and looking for, and I've always thought that this would be an amazing pastel, charcoal drawing. I'm going to start. So if you've got a pencil, okay. Let's just say this. So I'm going to start with the pastels. Does anybody need any talk about pastels? You all know which pastels to use. You know you're not using a pastel charcoal. You know which charcoal to use, not the compressed. You know that we're going to be using, let's see if I have any more left. We're going to be using the kneaded eraser, right? Unless of course you're using pencil, right? This guy. And you also know not to be using we're not until we get into the obsessive detail phase at the end. You're not going to be using a charcoal pencil, nor are you going to be using compressed charcoal, which is too dark and hard to release. So I just want to start by kind of identifying where the center of this piece is. And what happens when I say the center is people try to go right in the center of, like, say, the waterfall, right? We have this tendency to want to go to the center of the thing that we're looking at, as opposed to the center of the whole composition. So let's see where that is. I'm going to measure. I find that. And so for those of you who are working on a piece of paper with a pencil, you can do this with your ruler as well. And those of you who are working in charcoal can totally do this with your charcoal and newsprint. I'm finding the halfway point here. In this case, this is 11 inches, which is, I believe, 28 centimeters. And this is, I find the halfway point at the top and the bottom. And then I find the halfway point between. I don't try to kind of guess it, right? I line it up so I know that here's the halfway point on the top and the bottom. And then I find the halfway point on the vertical. So there is kind of the halfway point. This is the very center point. So if you find that on your paper, you can, it's going to help you figure out kind of where things are, in what quarters things are. So if I were to do that on this paper, I could do that either with my ruler, or I could kind of, you know, I could sort of guess like this and test it and see, and it needs to come over just a little bit. See how I'm measuring? I'm marking where I think the center is. And then I'm checking to see it's the same on both sides. Yeah, so you can do that as well. I'll try that up here. I know this, let's see. And then I can actually just take this measurement. Yep. I can also, this is a slightly uneven paper, so I'm just gonna cut this off right there. So this is a border for me. So you can do that, but try to find the center using your ruler or using your using your hands like this. See how I'm checking? Yep, there's the center. That helps me as I start to kind of lay out the pieces. Now, if you're using a pencil, you're just going to watch for a minute. Those of you who are using charcoal are going to take this out of the charcoal. And this is the most excellent technique ever. It's called toning. And you're going to cover. So we're going to practice as we have been. I feel like that's not very good. Sometimes different charcoal is different. It covers differently. So sometimes you need more than one piece. This is what we call toning, and we're going to do something called subtractive drawing. Francesca, since you're using a pencil, you're just going to, there's a similar technique, but you're going to start by outlining everything and then darkening in the, you know, darkening your outlines. We are going to outline everything with our erasers. And then
okay.
That's the only difference. Are you intrigued already though? I bet you are. This is, you're going to want to get your hands on some of this material. It's a pretty neat way to do it. Okay, so here we are. Yeah. So let's talk about, before we start sketching, let's talk about value for a second. What is value? Anybody want to jump in and say, what's value in drawing? What does that mean for us? Does it mean how valuable a painting is?
The scale of lights and darks.
Wouldn't that be nice? Right. So value is the lightness or darkness of any color. So, oh, and let me send this over so you guys can see this, and I'll send this over. Francesca, I'm going to add you.
Okay.
Because I think I already have you. Let's see.
Yeah, you should, but yeah, I can send you my.
I got you. And now I can see what you look like. Cool. You're in. So I'm going to forward this again. So you have the, you guys have the original. Okay. And then I'm going to take a picture of it with the yellow marks on it, just so you can see kind of the halfway point where that is. I know I have it up here on the screen, but it helps to be able to see it in person. And then I'm going to come back in. If I'm working in charcoal, I'm going to come back in. I can see my halfway point. It's about here, and remarking my halfway point so that I see it, just so that I know where it is. Here's my halfway point in the paper. And then, so value is the lightness or darkness of any color. And that means that if this, here, I'll do it over here on this other sheet. Oh, can't really see that. Let's see. Okay, I'll just do it right here and erase it. If this is a 5 and this is a 1, right? That's lightest value. This is the darkest value. 2, 3, and 4 are what we call midtones. 3 is probably exactly what we have here. Can you see this? So we're kind of getting gradually darker, right? So how many values do you think are represented here? Let's see, 1, 2, at least 4. Can you guys see at least 4 values? Yeah, okay. But what's really nice is we've got these really dramatic lights and darks, right? Kind of right next to each other, which is why this is going to turn out to be quite fun. All right, so for those of you, for all of you, I'm going to sketch out some of the major lights and darks. Here is the falls itself. Here's kind of a back part of the falls. Here is the front area. So I'm sketching out for you the first shapes that you're going to outline, either with your pencil or with your eraser. Okay, I think that's good to start with. So I'm going to send you a picture of these. And if you're working with the pencil, you're just going to start outlining these major dark and light shapes. And if you're working with the eraser, you're going to do this with your eraser. Now, if you're not working with exactly this proportion, you might have a little bit cut off on one side or the other. That's okay, right? Mine is this is an 8 by 10, and this is an 8.5 by 11, so it's not exactly the same. So I'm going to start by looking at where my center is and seeing that kind of up here, and using my eraser to kind of sketch in. Oops, went too far. It's gonna be easy to do that. See how I'm kind of sketching in the shape. Boy, it's funny, it's this massive falls, and yet when you sketch it in, it takes much less space. Look at, this is the size of that massive falls. Teeny.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. I started drawing it and I'm like, this is too small.
It's teeny, right? It's teeny. So this is what's interesting about the difference between the right and the left brain. Right? The right and the left brain, because we're looking at this and we know it's Victoria Falls and how magnificent that is, right? Because of all of that, we tend to exaggerate the size of things in our mind. And that's why it's like really interesting to see, oh, how much space do things, and even though I've been doing this a long time, I'm always surprised myself. I'm just surprised. I'm like, wow. I can see here, there's this kind of neat medium area. It's kind of where the water falls in, right? So if you're working with a pencil, you're just outlining these shapes. Let's see, I'm gonna do this next. There's a kind of foreground here. There's this background that kind of comes over like this. We definitely want room for the sky. Yeah, so that's the thing to kind of keep in mind always is, wow. Your mind is always going to be kind of challenged by the size of things on paper. It's going to be different than you think it is. Here we are. I'm going to send that over so you can see it. So you guys go ahead and kind of bring yourself to this place and send me a picture. Or if you want to, if you know what to do, you can keep going. Sandra, of course, send over what you're working on. Same with you, Lana, if you want me to take a look at anything. Those of you who know what's coming next, let's see, try a different color. We're gonna now kind of outline the major lights and darks. Here's where you get to start to see some fun magic happening. I'm kind of outlining the lights here. Light and blue. Here are some transitions. There's kind of an interesting, it's like there's, part of this is grass and part of this is trees, I think. You've got these things happening. So you can see now I'm starting to outline areas where you're going to want to either take your eraser in like this, right? With this massive area, if you're working in charcoal, right? Or you're outlining in pencil, and then you're going to your darks. Let's see. Hey, Jackie, look at the shape of this. For number one, I think you're too high up. You're almost at the halfway point with your.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And also, look, this line goes down.
Yep.
And you've really divided this in half. You've done that thing that I told you you want to be careful not. Well, you could, I think you need to scooch this over just a little bit on this side. Extend.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Good job. All right. And then once you start to kind of outline, so for charcoal people, you're going to be pulling out your lights right now with your eraser. For pencil people, you're just going to be going in and starting to, because your whites are going to stay light, right? You're going to go in and start darkening your dark areas like this. So with subtractive drawing, as you can see, which we're doing with, for subtractive drawing, we actually add darks in and then pull lights out. For regular pencil drawing, you've got to get your outlines in and then start darkening like this, right? Around the edges, around your lights. And now remember, I'm going to the darkest areas first, right? The super darkest areas, like here. Look at what that starts to do. Look at what just adding in these little trees lightly. I'm not doing too much detail. Look at what that does to create a sense of distance. So I haven't even really done very much, but can you already start to feel the perspective coming in? And that is because we're working with the biggest, darkest. When you're drawing and painting, right, you want to start with the biggest dark areas and the biggest light areas first, and then you start adding in the detail of the midtones of the smaller areas. So here I'm kind of working around as I see very strong darks. I'm getting in here. Look at what that does. I can go back in and work more detail. I think the tendency of us in our brains is to get right in here and start working all these details in the falls, right? So I urge you to get away from that. You want to kind of get the bigger lights and darks in first, and then you'll see how much detail you need to get to. So here I am kind of sketching in the dark of the sky. I know there's like clouds in there in the light part. I know there's a few areas in the dark part, but I just want to kind of see the lay of the land before I start adding in much detail. And then what you'll see is, what of course you learn is that you don't need that much detail to convey depth.
Leah, can you check if I'm now too big or if this is about right?
Let me see. I think that's okay.
Thanks.
Even if you're kind of a little crunched up this way or that way, that's okay. I'm more interested in you like yeah, that looks good.
Thank you.
Yeah, very nice. And Francesca, feel free to send over. You're going to be working slower because the pencil is going to take longer. We have done this in pencil before, so I know it can be done, but it'll take longer. So don't worry if yours is taking longer. This is like kind of the charcoal is kind of the short and sweet way of doing a subject like this. So go ahead and send me at any point. Go ahead and send me where you're working on, and don't feel like you should be keeping up with these guys because this is going to go faster.
Yeah, I've sent you something, but yeah, I'm just at the starting point,
okay,
as you can see.
Oh, where did you send it? Did you send it across the thread here?
Yeah.
I do not see it.
Ah, let me check.
Send it again. Try sending it again. Ah, there we go. Here it is. It just took a minute. Oh yeah, there you go. Okay, so a couple of things here. One thing I want you to notice is that your falls ends before the halfway point of this half. So you see how you've extended it? So you've brought your falls. I'm going to show you where you put your falls. You put your falls here. I'm going to show it here. You put your falls down here.
Okay.
Like that. Okay. It's too high. And the reason you did that is because this feels like the most immense part, right? It's easy to make things too big. So you need to bring that, you need to take your pencil and bring that back up to about,
okay,
right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things you're going to learn is I'm very problem oriented. So I'm going to go to the problem area first without saying, hey, good job, Francesca. That's really actually pretty good.
No problem. I mean, it's difficult. Yeah, you're right that the brain sees something different from what is on paper.
Oh yes.
Yeah, it's true.
I can tell you what it is. I'll tell you exactly. While you're fixing that, I'll tell you and everybody exactly what that is. You'll notice that everybody will do the same thing. That is when we look at something, we exaggerate the size of it. We exaggerate, and that's a survival mechanism. It's like what we do when we look really closely at something and are like, let's see, is this berry, can I eat this berry or is this going to kill me, right? Is that person mad at me or are they happy to see me? Is that tiger coming at me or do I have to run, right? Like, so we're used to honing in on detail and picking up a lot of detail really quickly. Unfortunately, that often means when you're drawing or constructing anything, right? If you're drawing a building as an architect, if you're building a car engine, if you're putting together a quilt, if you're putting together a drawing, if you're building a table, you need to kind of know what things are in relation to other things. So constantly, it's real easy to make this. And you'll notice when I talked about this, I was like, wow, this is a lot smaller than I thought it would be, right? So your mind is constantly surprised, I think, by how it's easy to make things too big. And in drawing terms, it's 1 or 2 millimeters of difference can be huge. So that's the idea behind that. I think what you guys will see as we start to do this, in the falls themselves, there's quite a few transitions from light to medium to dark. So try not to get overwhelmed, just deal with them one at a time. Deal with those areas just kind of bits at a time. But also, if you'll notice the way I'm looking at this, I'm kind of looking at the bigger shapes that pop out to me. I'm not trying to get all of them. I'm a little bit lazy. I don't want to say lazy. I like to get a lot of work done. How's that? So I tend to not go too realistic just because I often have a lot of projects going on. I have a big show opening in 2 weeks, and I have 4 giant, like 3 feet by 3 feet paintings that need to be done in the next 5 days. So I will go as efficiently as possible. I'm going to go through and finish. Working from bigger details to small. But that is not what you have to do. You see, so you see how I'm kind of like going through here. So now I can use the edge of my charcoal. And if you can notice, the trees here in the background are really 4s, and this ground, sorry, are 5s, and this ground is like a 4. And then this water is like a 3. It's dark. So there's actually a transition happening. You can kind of do what we call pushing the contrast. So it means there is a little bit more contrast. Right? Then is actually in the picture. You're allowed to do that. There's kind of a little darker island that's in here. And I'm going back in with my eraser because down here, it's kind of a little fall area. So you can kind of push the contrast more than is actually there. That is often something artists will do to kind of make their pictures look more three-dimensional. Because in reality, subtleties that we see when we're actually looking at something when you've got a flat surface, you've got to push those differences a little bit more to make them obvious. There's kind of some nice, and I'm also doing something called working the edges. So what I'm doing is I'm going to the areas where a lighter edge meets a darker edge. And you'll notice I'm kind of moving around the photo as I do this, the scene. I'm not sticking in one place very long. I'm kind of moving around, working different areas to see what happens. It's like super dark up here. And then it gets, there's some like kind of light areas, but I want to make sure this reads. I'm using my finger. There you go. This is a dirty process. It's just dirty. I'm bringing in some lights in here, and then I'm going to work around them. But notice how strong the darks are next to the lights of the sky. Notice how also it's really a lot of soft edges, which you can get really nicely in charcoal. I'm partly doing this quickly so you guys can get some ideas about how to do things. I'll keep working on it, but I also really want to see your stuff. So make sure. Okay, Lana. Good job, Lana. Good proportions. Excellent. I'm so proud of you all. So Francesca, if you like your result here, you should put this in the student show. I just work on it until you get it done and put it in.
Okay, it's still very white. So not so black as yours.
Yeah, that's because I'm working in a medium that allows me to go more quickly. Right? That's the beauty of charcoal. So I'm trying to pick, as we're going through this, I'm trying to pick things that teach different lessons. And this is a lesson of composition, right? Where, how much do different things, what's the word? How are things laid out to create a kind of dynamic composition? Notice that when you're drawing, we are always thinking about the thing next to what we're working on. That's really proper drawing etiquette, right? You're kind of constantly scanning your edges where dark. So that's what I was doing. I was just looking at my sky and thinking, oh, need to get a little bit more darkness up here. I also don't feel like I need to get every cloud that's in the sky. I'm looking at the edge where these dark sort of trees meet the lights. So I'm trying to give you subjects that encourage you. Well, you can obsess about the details as much as you like. I like it. There's a lot of places to obsess. Let's put it that way. Also notice that when you're working these falls, you don't need to get every fall. That is not important. It's important that you get kind of the major shapes. Don't get too lost in the details. Just like I just did right here. Okay, let's see. So I might go back. See this dark. I can also see that there's a dark. You can see that this is darker back here too. I'm kind of darkening this back part of the falls, and then I'll go back in. So I'm making it pretty dark right now. And then I'm going to go back in with my eraser and add in my lighter falls like that. I think that's going to be easier than trying to color in the dark around the light. So I might do a little bit of that. I might decide I want to put a darker, a strong edge. Notice I'm doing this around the top of the edge of the white, just to really help it stand out. And I might add some of the details right next to this big curtain of white. So
it already looks better in the picture, Leah.
Oh, you think?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I've been away in the kitchen, now I'm coming back.
I love it. That's the wonderful thing about, like, right? Because it's funny, they did studies looking at museums, looking at how long people spent in front of a photograph and how long people spend in front of a painting. And on average, it's like 20 seconds you spend in front of a photograph. And on average, it's like 3 minutes you'll spend in front of a painting, because you'll spend a lot of time trying to figure out how people did what they did, right? Like you're like,
I think as an artist you do that, but I'm not sure you do that as a layperson.
Viewers do that too. They found that statistically. They've done many studies on how long people will stand in front of a different artworks, and it's absolutely true that like we spend more time looking at paintings, quite frankly, because I think we're like, how was that? You want to know how that was created, right?
I have to say, we were talking about realistic painting, and sometimes I belong to several like watercolor groups on Facebook, and sometimes you think, what is this, a photo or is this a painting? And it looks so much like a photo. But then you look at the edges, you look at the parts around outside the main focus, and you can see it's a painting, but it's amazing.
Right. It's amazing. You can see it. I mean, I'll pull out a Richard Estes watercolor so you can see his work. He's sort of the penultimate. I don't know if he's still alive, but I think he is. Let's see. Hold on. He is 89 years old and still alive.
Wow.
And that's so awesome. So this is a Richard Estes painting. Here, I'll share it too. Oh no, wait, I think I have to pull it up and then, let's see. Ooh, Francesca's moving pretty fast. Not bad. I like your mark making, Francesca. Just keep on going, right?
Thank you.
Yep. Now, don't forget, you've got trees here on this edge, and they have edges. You can't really see it in this, but you can see it in this. Here, hold on. I'll send the original.
Okay. Okay.
So now you want to start kind of working edges. Where the edges, you want to add detail, like where the tree, see how I just started to add a little detail where the trees are, a little bit of, I'm looking at where the dark tree meets the light sky in the background. So now I'm starting to add just a little bit more detail to make this more visually interesting. That's what we call working the edges, and that's what you do.
Okay.
Return to the paper. Don't look at every detail, but look at what's happening over here with these trees, for example. Very nice. You can use your eraser. You can, go back in, but it's kind of nice and surprising how fun it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And by the way, I know I said do not use a charcoal pencil, but once you've got these basic things laid in, you can use a charcoal pencil to start giving yourself a little bit more detail, a little bit more room for detail. Hold on, still looking for red.
What did you say that it's difficult to erase?
Yeah, it doesn't really erase well.
Okay.
It's too compact and, like a pencil. It's like a pencil.
But pencil erase well.
Yeah,
graphite.
A pencil. So, all right, so here's a Richard Estes. There we go. Let's see if I can drop it this way. Oh yeah, Jackie, nice. That's coming along nicely. Here's Richard Estes.
It's not as satisfying a pencil. I was just using one.
Okay, this isn't gonna, you have to click on it. I can't get it off the page. I'm trying.
Doesn't seem to.
Really annoying.
Doesn't seem to come up.
Yeah, it's not coming across. So I'm trying to grab one, but I can't get it if it won't. Maybe I can do it from here.
What's why don't you just give us the guy's name?
Yeah, but I want you to be blown away by. I want to hear.
No. Oh, I see. No, because then we could look it up and.
Yeah, I'll do that as well. But hold on, I'm gonna grab something. I am gonna grab something and send it over to you. Now I know the way to do it. Images. There, that's the way to do it. I figured it out. I just have to go to my desktop and do it. He's like super famous. Right, one more thing and then I'll get it over here. You guys can see it. Yeah. All right, I will send you, but first I'm going to send you these pictures. This is what I also love about art. When you're 89, you can be better than you are at 40 or 20. There they are. Check those out. I'm pretty sure it's all watercolor.
Wow, is all I can say to that.
Right? I'm just reading.
Painting. That is incredible.
Can you fucking believe it?
No.
He actually he doesn't call himself a photorealist. He calls himself a he doesn't call himself a hyperrealist nor a photorealist, but a photo-derived painter.
Amazing.
He just walks around New York City, for example. I know, it's just crazy. And watercolor. Like, that's watercolor.
How do you do that with watercolor?
You know, it's a level of detail. It's a level of being obsessive about detail.
Yeah, but it doesn't look like hyperrealism. Yeah.
It's pretty fucking real.
Yeah, maybe the telephone thing, but not the one before.
Take the waterfall?
No, sorry, the cityscape.
Here, you should take a look at this one.
The telephone, yeah. There's a Korean guy that does amazing portraits in watercolor. They look completely real, and yet it's watercolor.
Take a look at this one. Here, I'm going to send it over. 1 second. But I would say everybody is kind of modeling themselves. Anybody who's doing this is thinking about him. Estes. He kind of forged the way on this. He forged the way for this kind of work. One more coming soon. Interesting idea, right? So you as an artist are kind of always making decisions. You're always making decisions about what needs to be done. How much you want to do, how detailed you want to get. But if you start from the bigger shapes and move to the smaller, you get there quicker, as opposed to obsessing the way we do when we're not really trained, which is to start on the little details and then move outward. So what I'm trying to train you on is it's more like when and how you do it, rather than how much detail you get into. I really actually enjoy seeing how different people kind of take this differently. I love how Sandra's animals have a certain kind of realism. She focuses on certain things like the eyes and lets other things be loose. I love how Julia's work, all the edges are just so strong. You know, I love how everybody's work has its own, you kind of make your own decisions about how you're going to do it. My job is just to get you there quickly, right? So you can do more work, even more work. More would be better.
I feel art starved after last week, like 2 back-to-back birthday parties.
Oh yeah, with Lucy?
Sorry, what was that?
For Lucy?
Yeah, so last week was like 6, 10-year-old and 11-year-old, all sort of, you know,
God.
7 hours. And the week before we had the family over, so it's like, right, can everybody go home now so I can get on with my art, please?
Here, right? Love you all. See you in 7 hours. Julia, did you manage to get your extra day?
No, not yet. Not yet.
All right. So
I'm still figuring out. Yeah.
We can use the mental health week to kind of push for that for you. Because you know, Reuters is sponsoring all this. Yes, and so there is, and Sandra, if you feel like popping in, I know you work. Are you working next week?
I'm about to start a cat, but I was rifling through my magic closet.
Oh, okay.
The cats are rushing in.
Nice. Speaking of, let me go check on Senior. I'll be right back.
We can go to see devils.
Come on, Boo. Oh, it's Hermes to say hello. Like, here, hold on. Let's see if I can add him before he jumps off. There he is. Hello, he's about to jump out of my, he's been outside. Yes, you would do. Who shall? There we go. Oh. There's the spotlight. There we go. I was also hoping that this might be, been working so hard on things like cars and buildings. They're super difficult. I was kind of hoping to back off a little bit, little bit of easier things. So that was partly what this was about. This assignment was about cooling, easier. Wow. What the hell?
This is Rabbit objecting to poor Dragon coming on the table.
Oh,
you're welcome, Dragon.
Little brat.
He's very rude to his baby brother. Very rude.
Yeah.
Poor Dragon. Here, I'm going to open this window for you.
So just to give you guys another sort of hint, I'm about to do something where the noise is kind of annoying, but I want you to watch. This is an electric eraser made by Derwent. And sometimes that can really help in creating kind of stronger lights, right, within darks. You'll see there's kind of a limit to what your pencil can do. And this, although it's annoying as hell to listen to, is a really amazing tool for getting kind of more intensive lights in. So if you're a gearhead and you're looking for even more, I poo-pooed it, I really stopped it. Because I don't really think of myself as a drawer as much as I think of more of a, unless it serves my paintings. But I have to say, this thing is awesome. See it? Isn't that incredible? I'm like, oh my God, the level of detail you can get.
It's because it's a thin eraser.
And because it goes really hard, because you can just.
It erases through.
Look, it's not, yeah, do you have one, right, Sam? Do you have one?
Yes.
Yeah, I use it. I'm shocked at how much I use it. One of our people in New York sent it to me because I was like, yeah, what? I mean, she sent me one, and I'm like, I'm obsessed with it right now. I mean, look at this. I can kind of go in here, and I can create nice kind of edges. There's this kind of dark and light happening. Oh, hello. Hi. You like that too, huh? Yeah, it's pretty awesome. The hardest part about drawing, I think, is just getting to that point where you understand how to get the bigger shapes. Once you get that, I think the details are easier to see. It's more that, how do you start? That's the major thing, right? That's the hardest thing. And I feel like that, if you can kind of internalize that, a lot of things much more apparent in terms of how to handle them, how to do them. You're going to see the limits of each medium. I want to bring you guys, in October, we're going to use ink. And when I say ink, I don't mean an ink pen. I mean this. We're going to use this stuff. It is the most awesome material you can possibly imagine. For Inktober, we'll be doing drawings in ink. And this is going to resolve. You'll notice that charcoal, one of the things that's hard is to get dark enough. No problems with that here. Look, it's like a bamboo pen like they used in the, I don't know, the Mongolian Empire. Yeah, I can just totally see. I love this thing just because I can see some dude sitting at the edge of, like, I don't know, Kazakhstan.
Says Leo's been there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's pretty great. Mongolia, yes. I think that's why I'm obsessed with Mongolia, because I lived there for a year. It was pretty great. I know, buddy. You want to go? Are your cats very, when are they most active, Sandra?
Oh, in the morning, I guess.
Yeah. And later.
I let them out while I prepare their food in the morning. And right now, I think they'd like to be in the garden, but Leon still tries to escape. So
every
in the afternoon, they often sleep, and then they wake up like around 5, 6 p.m. because they get hungry.
Yes, same with my dude here. He's pacing around, wanting to run around. Wants lots of playing.
You know, normally they're active just before dawn. They do me a favor because I sleep, and they agree to sleep with me. But it's when they'd really like to be active, because that's when in nature they would hunt.
Right. Come on, buddy. Hang on. I'll be right back. I'm gonna take him out. Come on. Come on. I hope by now you are lost in the work. That is my hope for you. I love it. I love it that for half an hour, no one has said a word and no one is, I mean, you can totally send me things. I don't mind having them sent, but you're just in it. That is true stress relief and true meditation.
I have this this ring, Leah, which is a sort of a tracker device.
Oh yeah.
I always find it quite interesting when I'm doing my art. Afterwards, I get this kind of dip in my heart rate, and they say rest period. Which I find really
it's a biofeedback thing, right? It checks your pulse, heart rate, all that stuff. Isn't that interesting? I just love it. It's because there is some stress associated with art. Hi, Lucy. There is some stress associated with art because we don't know how to do it, right? And people have a lot of ideas about it that make it stressful. But I think in general, once you understand the principles, it helps you not to get stuck, right? To be able to know how to problem solve. So although there is that stress at the beginning, there is also as it requires your concentration, there is a kind of a relaxation that happens a zone, if it, as it were.
I find it immensely relaxing.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it? That's just enough to, for that alone, that's enough to do it. Enough to do it, just for that alone.
Reminds me of a friend who meditates every day, and this fitness watch thinks it records it as sleeping.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very, yeah, it kind of focuses you. As I was telling somebody, it was funny, one of my friends took a class, her first art class on Friday, and she jumped into a figure drawing class, which is about the hardest thing you could possibly do, I think, to like jump in. And so, and she's very polite, right? She's from the South, she's very polite. So about halfway through, I was like, so how's it going? Is it fun? And she went, yeah, it's fun. Like you can see her, like she was trying really hard to say, and I said, it's okay if this is hard, right? Like it's fun, but it's not exactly fun the way eating ice cream is fun. Not the way like laying on a beach and reading a book is fun. It's a different, this is like hiking is fun, right? This is like, stretch yoga is fun. This is how meditation is fun. It's not, it's actually trying to take
meditation is not fun.
Right. Yeah, right. It's not that like fun is not at gratifying is where we came to, I think. I was like, you do not have to love this right away. It's hard. But if you can follow it, you will feel a sense of achievement that'll make it more relaxing eventually. Let's see. Oh yeah, Jack, it's looking great. So now I want you to really look at what's happening in this sort of bottom area.
Mm-hmm.
How the white varies, right? Mm-hmm. And in the areas, you might take your finger and kind of run it across.
Yep.
A little bit too, just to soften things a little bit.
Okay.
Right?
I'm too scared to use a charcoal pencil for edges, so I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, no, oh, you can do that if you want to.
No, I don't want to.
But like kind of work in here.
Yep.
Right, look at this edge here. You're gonna have to go back to the original photograph because I've kind of blocked it.
Yeah.
Sketch, but this is an important edge to get right. Get some of these guys, and you know, like there's this looks great. Oh, Julia, sorry, this looks amazing. I can't believe I just saw this right now. Wonderful. I like how you really pushed the value differentiation here. I think that really works, right? With the little island in the center. That works really, and then this kind of lighter around it. So yeah, I'd say the same thing with you. Take a look at how the white is flashing down into the medium here. Mm-hmm. That's probably, it's wonderful though. Does the sky look great? Good job, you guys. This is great. I mean, here's the thing. At the beginning of the class, do you think you can do these kind of things? Are you like always like, I have no idea, right? And by the end of the class, my hopers are like, oh yeah, this is starting to make sense to me.
I have to apologize too, because I'm going to have to hop off soon. I've got a conference panel I have to attend.
Got it.
But I will keep working.
You can keep working, and you're doing great.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Oh, Francesca, look at that. Bravo, my dear. Bravo.
Is it not too white, the fall?
No,
what do you think?
It's okay. I think it's okay. It's
okay.
So now I want you to kind of work this edge, right? Look at where, you're gonna have to go back to the original photo, but you're gonna see there's kind of a way that it comes splashing down and then spills out this way. So there's water coming down this way and it spills out this way. And it has to do with how the light edges kind of fall into this medium section. I haven't really worked that area yet, but try working that. It looks great. Aren't you pleased with yourself?
I'm happy.
Yeah, it should be pretty great. So just kind of work this edge, and then I'd like you to take a photo of it and enter it in the student show. Okay, Francesca, it's good enough. All of you can totally enter this one in the student show if you want to. I want people to see new work. And Sandra, you're totally welcome to enter your pastel drawings if you want, but I want to see, I think you'd be much more, I think you've got some really strong watercolor work, and I think you should enter it.
I haven't done any pastels this year.
Excellent. And this is all for 2021. That's the one thing about this show. I want you to put in work that you did in 2021.
So it's only going to be a watercolor.
Excellent. I'm thrilled for you. That's really awesome.
Did you start watercolor, Sandra, when we kind of transitioned to watercolor?
I know, I started before. I started, I think, at the end of January.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to do acrylic.
She was really clear that it was going to help her, that this was the medium that was going to help her kind of loosen up. And she was right.
Well, that's not why I did it. I didn't think like that. You wanted me to loosen up. I just didn't like acrylic, and I'd always wanted to try watercolor, so I suddenly plunged into it.
And then became obsessed in a good way.
Oh yes, completely.
Yeah, but
I'm still obsessed.
Well, I think somewhere in there you knew, Sandra, somewhere your artist self was telling you, please do this, because this is going to be the thing that you need. This is the medium that's going to bring you to the next place.
You know, I wanted to do gouache.
Oh yeah,
but I couldn't find any, because in the pandemic, we ran out of gouache. And also I could find very little instructional videos on YouTube, you know, very few videos. It was all about watercolor. Well, I came across a guy who did watercolor and gouache. He did a bison. He's like some Western guy. And it looked fantastic. So then on, I began looking at more watercolor, and it kind of clicked.
Yeah. I think that is a sign, though, that you're in some way your body, your artistic body, soul, whatever you want to say, knew what you needed. And you were very insistent. And you were like, I am absolutely doing this. And I think that has been a massive, it's been so many benefits. And now you're starting to click into how you do the pastels, right?
I'm not doing pastels at the moment.
No, but you are clicking into how you do them in your water.
Yes. What I did in pastels is now helping me with watercolor.
Yeah. It's starting to sink in a really good way. But so it's all very clearly your work.
I still think I'm better at pastels, but I want to
been doing watercolor.
conquer this. I think by now I've probably done more watercolors than pastels, but I've been doing pastels for longer.
Yeah, you've been doing pastels for a while. Everything, so the mediums, and the reason I introduced the different mediums is I want you to figure out, I want you all to learn what is your thing. You know what I mean?
Yes, I think it's interesting. There are things that are easier in some. Obviously, it's very easy to overlay white fur in pastels, and it's very hard in watercolor.
Oh yeah, super hard.
But watercolor is faster.
Watercolor is expressive too because of its quickness. Very expressive. It's expressive in a way. It's expressive in a way that is really not, well, ink is similar. There's a way in which you're forced to confront what you do. That I really love about it. You can't, there are things you can do to slow the process. There are things you can do to quote unquote erase. but there's a kind of radical acceptance you need to make with your mark making for in watercolor, and I really appreciate it for that.
Yeah, you don't have as much control.
Yeah, you have to let your hand do what it's going to do. I love things, as you probably have noticed, I love things that kind of remove control. Well, I like to take control in a different way than I think most people think about control. I like to add a medium which does certain things that control how you do things, and then give you techniques that will help you kind of problem solve everything. But I think it's really helpful to sometimes have things that don't, I think it's really helpful to have things that you can't, you know, that make you think differently just by the nature of what they are. So in a way that's controlling and in a way that isn't, right? Because if what I'm trying to teach is across the medium, how you use different subjects, how you use different materials, how you problem solve. What is the same across the mediums, and then what's different according to the medium.
Right.
And that is a kind of more generalist way of problem solving in art. I just don't want people to get stuck in one thing or one medium and not know how to go forward.
I think eventually we'll artists have one thing that they're really good at and like. I mean, there are some people, I mean, particularly people who take commissions, I suppose, have to work across several mediums, but usually it's just one thing that you do well, right?
I have never really settled, to tell you the truth. I mean, I definitely.
But you really like acrylic, don't you?
No, oil.
Oil.
Favorite. But I spend only about half my time working in oil. I spend about half my time working in oil. I spend about a third of my time working in acrylic. I spend about a third of my time working in pastels and watercolor. So I really, you know, I wouldn't say sure, like, I mean, I would say that definitely I have a preponderance, like a sort of a preference towards oil and acrylic, but I spend a lot of time not doing that. I spend a lot of time doing other things, just depending on whatever projects I'm working on. So it's interesting. It is true that you find what you like and you do it, but you know, and I think Jessica Pryor is a great example of that as well. She prefers oil, but she does really wonderful work in gouache, watercolor, and pastels. And she spends a fair amount of time working in all those mediums, depending on what it is she wants to do. Nice, Lana. Very nice. So Lana, just now your job is to kind of, this area down here needs to get a little bit darker. The part here, you can see it. It's lighter than the background, the things around it, but it's definitely darker than what's happening up here. So that's the challenge now, is to work that body of water. Good job. It's really fun, isn't it? It's really great. Great work, you guys. I'm proud of y'all. Proud of you all. Yep, it's what we liked when we were kids. Totally. It's very romantic. And Francesca, all of these classes are recorded. So if they are not at a time zone or a time that works for you, you can pick them up later. Usually
okay.
about a day. to like pop them on. So let me put in the chat, actually I'll put it in the thread, the YouTube link to find all the classes. Well, not all. I'd say I video about 90% of them. Something usually happens to about 10% of the videos, but there's still a lot of classes that are recorded, most of them. Let's see here.
Yeah, I think I watched a couple of lessons for watercolor because I took a couple in person, and then it was not possible to me to listen to the others. So during my holidays, I was like watching YouTube. Yeah, it was great. I mean, it was a good way to continue to practice.
That's so good. I'm so glad. That's the idea of those. So they get updated fairly regularly. Usually it takes a day or two, just depending on what my video editor is doing at the time. So yeah, this one will be on, for example, like this.
Okay.
On. Tomorrow's classes will be on. Like, I didn't record Thursday's class because we ended up basically just talking about how to price your artwork and what it was. Everybody kind of worked on their own thing, and we talked about being a professional artist because we had a couple people who had questions about that. So that's what we did. We spent our time discussing that. Totally interesting, but I didn't record it.
That's a shame.
All right, we could talk about that. Actually, it was really compelling because one of my substitute teachers, Emma Bergman, who is a former student of mine who's now getting an art degree, a painting degree in college. So she's 19. I've been working with her since she was like 12. Emma was asking about whether I thought she could apply for art residencies. And she said, what do you think about art residencies that pay, right? Like competitive. And I was like, well, what are you thinking? And she was like, well, I was hoping maybe after school I could get some art residencies that pay and do, be able to make art and be paid. And I'm like, if that's your professional plan, it's not going to work. Like, that's not it. You won't be able to make enough money consistently doing art residencies to be able to make.
What are art residencies? I mean, who do you do the work for?
It just depends. There are art programs that will pay artists to do work at various points in their career. Art residencies are really paid ones, are really designed to support like really good artists who need a little bit of help as they're going through their career for one reason or another. So for example, it may be hard for like our abstract teacher, Krista Trask, to take more than 15 hours a week to work on her own art because she's so busy running her own gallery and teaching, right, for me. So she might say, I would like to be paid for like 3 months to do that so I can have time to just do this series that I have in my mind. So she will be paid for that. Or here's another example, which I find really fascinating. Amy Sherald, who is the woman who painted the Michelle Obama portrait that now sits in the National Gallery. So for those of you who don't know, when Obama and Michelle were president, when Barack and Michelle were president, they not only, every president of the US gets a portrait done in the very professional style. And so, and it gets added into the, painters do it, and it gets added into the collection of all the presidents. And once they got those done, Michelle and Barack each picked a really talented Black artist to do their own, a more contemporary take on their own portraits. Those are now in, I think they're at the they're traveling, so that they're at the Art Institute of Chicago right now, I think. They normally sit at the Smithsonian, one of the art museums there. The National Gallery, they're at the National Gallery. And the woman who Michelle Obama picked is a woman named Amy Sherald, very talented artist. And Amy at the time did not have enough, at the time she got the commission for the First Lady's portrait, she did not have enough money to pay her studio rent.
Wow.
So she applied for a grant for $25,000, which she got to get, like, to cover those costs until
That's a grant from whom?
I don't remember who. It was some private organization that gives
right.
like grants to artists. There's a lot of them. So that is like how art residencies kind of work and grants work, right? Like, here you are, a talented artist. You're so talented that the president's wife has picked you to do a portrait. And you, because you have to do it before you get paid, you don't have the money to pay your studio rent. Like, it's not like somebody pays you up front and then you deliver the painting. You know, you have to do the painting before you get paid. And so that is like, I think that's just classic. You can be at that point in your career, you can be that good and still not have the basic money to bring in, you know, to support. So for artists, a professional artist, it's very up and down. And it's also true that, like, for artists out of college, I think it's really hard to make a living because they don't have enough experience yet, right? So they might be good, but it's going to be a while before they can fully, you know, try to fully support themselves on selling art. The way selling art changes all the time. So it was a very interesting and dynamic discussion about realistically, like, and I thought about it and I was like, you know, realistically, I don't personally know any artists who are under the age of 50 who are supporting themselves. I am just beginning to support myself. It's just the last 3 years. And even so, I still need to take side jobs and side hustles to make my art fully pay for me. So like, and I've been doing this 20 years. So it's like, I was like, yeah, I don't really know anybody who's young. I know a few, I mean, there's a few superstars that got kind of tagged out of college who do seem to get picked up by galleries and sold a lot, but it's rare. It's really rare. Most people, you have to kind of build that up. So she was just asking, and it's an interesting conversation. I mean, I'm kind of glad I did journalism first before I became an artist. It gave me a set of skills that I can use, you know, to make a living while I'm trying to make a living as an artist. It's hard though, it's not easy. So that was a conversation we had. It was quite a fascinating one.
I would have thought it's very similar for authors, right?
Yeah. I think anybody who is like a creative, a working creative, you've got to like work another job while doing your creative and selling your creative work until you hit a certain point. And then if you do get to become a best-selling author, you got to crank it. You really, really have to crank it. So I think I've said this several times. I used to offer classes in my studio, and I remember I actually had a New York Times best-selling YA author, Maggie Stiefvater, come and take a class with me. She's a really gifted artist, super gifted, but she'd never painted. She always works with colored pencils. So she came to take a class with me, and she was on tour for her, I think her 25th book in Portland. That she lives in Kentucky, but she was on tour. And so she took 2 hours out of her tour schedule to take a class with me. And then she was going back to finish the draft she needed to get to her publisher for her 26th book. So she's like, she works like brutally hard to get at least a manuscript a year published. You know, you have to get a full novel in every year to make a living. And then you don't even know. Yeah, like it's a very weird, you know, book sales can fall at any time. So it's hard.
I think also what happens as an author is that your books sell each other, right?
Yeah, that's right. So you build, same like with paint. Yeah, so you've got to, yeah. All right. All right, you guys, this is looking pretty, these are looking pretty good. I'm gonna pull off here, I'm gonna remove the spotlight. I want to look at you all in gallery view. So I know Francesca and Lonnie, you can't show it, but why don't you, those of you who can, why don't you hold up where you're at? And Sandra, if yours is too wet, of course, don't worry about it.
Too wet, but I have to do it fast because I'm gonna lose my edges.
Yeah, looking great. So, yeah, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Please put those in the show. They're wonderful. Put them in the show. I'd love to see those in the show. Yeah, Lana, that looks great. So everybody, here, I'm going to turn off the recording.